Hello, I'm Malcolm West from Project in a Box, and in this session we're going to be looking at the Praxis Framework. So the Praxis Framework is one of the many methods that we support within the Project in a Box product range. We consider our projects to be methodology led. So a project is created from a method, and that provides all the navigation and materials, templates, guidance materials, etc. associated with delivering a project of that type. We have a number of products aimed at different types of users. Our completely free community edition, which we're going to be focusing on mainly in this session, and also multi-user platforms and commercial personal tools as well. Most of the methods that we provide actually are available across all of these products, even the free one. Some of the methods you'll see are commercial add-ons because they're using royalty material. Some of them are only appropriate for the multi-user platforms, but by and large available for most systems, and that's the case very much for the Praxis Framework here, one of our core standard methods. The Praxis Framework itself, if you don't know anything about it yet, is a free framework for project program and portfolio management, and it's tackling a really big issue that's been building up as people have been getting more and more into managing their projects, programs, portfolios in a more structured and mature way. People have often picked up things as they've gone along, so they might have decided to use Prince2 as a methodology. They might have been APM members and using the body of knowledge to support their practices. They might have picked up some competence frameworks from a consultant or a training organisation, and some capability maturity stuff. They might have been using P3M3 or one of the other maturity models. Trying to use all those interlinked though can be quite challenging because there's not necessarily a direct mapping between them, and you see all these people doing mapping exercises and comparing Prince2 and PMBOK and all that sort of thing. And this is to try and get away from that. This is providing you with a free set of resources which meet all of those requirements. They're all interlinked. It's designed from the bottom up to work across all of these areas, and it aligns to those existing standards, international project management standards, as well as the things we've been talking about, body of knowledge, Prince2, etc. That's the sort of core framework, if you like, and that's then widely supported by a library of additional materials. Lots of people blogging around it, books being written about it. There are glossaries and encyclopedias and all those sorts of things. So really helping you get into the world that is the Praxis Framework, and to transfer onto that, if you like, from the understanding that you've already got of the areas of best practice that you've been involved with already. So if you already know how to use Prince2, you'll find the Praxis Framework a pretty easy read across. If you already know how to use the body of knowledge or are familiar with the body of knowledge, you'll find many elements of that included and referenced and comparable within the Praxis Framework. So that's what it's intended to do. Let's have a look at some of that in practice then within Project in a Box. So as I mentioned, we're going to start by looking at the Community Edition. This is a completely free tool that you can use on your Windows desktop or laptop forever if you want to. It comes with also with a planning tool, which we'll talk about in a minute. When you install it, it has some example projects in it already, and we can see a list of those here, but we can create a new one. In fact, we can create as many projects in here as we want from the existing methods that are available on the tool. So we're going to use the Praxis one here. So we're going to create an example project new. This is Praxis Small. This is contextualized for smaller, less complex project environment. It doesn't use all the materials that are in Praxis, which you might apply to bigger projects or programs, for example. But it's aimed at that smaller and, in fact, the much more common type of projects that people generally do. So it'll create all that for us really nice and quickly. And as I say, you can have multiple projects in here in parallel if you want to. And we're going to open our project, which is this one here. And straight away we can see we've got connection to the Praxis Framework library. I can jump from here, from any of these links, off to the content which is hosted online. So we're not carrying around within the method all of that wealth of information. We're giving you the opportunity to link back to it when you want to. So you can click on any of these links and it'll take you to the relevant sections in the main website. Of course, you can also dive off into the project and focus much more on the method side of things. Of course, if you want to come back to home and do further navigations, you can go and do that. So you can jump backwards and forwards within these environments, and it's designed to be fairly intuitive. It's graphical, so you can read things and click on things rather than having to necessarily follow lots of menu items. So we've got our process model laid out here, the Praxis Framework method, and we can simply click on the process steps and it will unpack those for us. So here we've got the identification process and we can see the steps that are involved in here, and as we click onto a particular step it will show us the documentation that's associated with that particular activity. And this is the idea of what Project in a Box does. It takes that big model of how that framework works and gives you the bits that are relevant to the process step that you're at the moment. So behind the scenes it has all of the documentation and structure for the process, but it's just giving you the bits that are relevant. So we can see here we've got a file explorer. As we come to each document it gives us context sensitive advice about what we're supposed to do with that particular area. Some of these things are provided with templates, so we can come in here and see, for example, a daily log template or a brief template here. Some of these are provided empty because they're placeholders for things we want to collect. So for example, it's good practice actually that a mandate is quite a simple document. It might be an email, a note of a meeting, an idea of some sort, and you can simply record that by dragging that piece of information, and you don't have to have a template for that if you don't want to. So if I want to include a mandate, somebody sent me something, for example an email here, I can simply select the right document, mandate, drag it in like that, and it will include that file in my documentation set. That's now there forever. It's taken a copy of it, and anything else I choose to add will also be included, and I'm building up my documentation for that. And it's all in the right place. We can find it nice and easily because it's in that placeholder. When we've got templates for things, as we said earlier, like for example the brief, I can view those by double clicking on them. Well, let's just maximize that again. And there's my brief opened. It's a standard template and it's got the section headers for the things that you need to put into it. All these templates actually are provided under a common license, so you can, Creative Commons license, so you can go in and personalize these if you want to match your particular organization. So this is not a sort of hard controlled set of documentation. You can go in and personalize it to match your circumstances, which is obviously very important. So rather than just viewing that template, I could instead check it out and check it back in as a new version. We have that sort of version control capability, document management tool built into Community Edition as well. So this time I'm going to check the file out, and you'll see it's giving me some helpful hints and tips on the buttons as to the key things. So I can make some changes to this. I can start to put some content in to my template like that. Obviously I'm going to write something a little bit more useful than that in the real world. I'll simply close it and then check it back in with a note about the useful things I wrote, and that's going to version that for me. So now when I come back and look at the current version, which is what I'm getting from here, it'll give me the latest version, and I can look back through the history anytime I want to and see earlier copies. I can only check out and change the current version, but back in the history I can see the earlier versions. So it's building up that version history for me. So immediately we're doing some of the key sort of project support office things about managing the complexity of documentation on projects. We're knowing where things are going to be held when we add them. We can add any things we want to here, any type of file you want to at all, and then it's also going to version control the content that we're updating as well. Now it's immediately worth talking, because we talked here about a simple life cycle model, that we've got a context guide in here, and the context guide is really useful. It's telling you how this particular flavor, if you like, of the Praxis framework has been derived. It's showing you the life cycle steps here, and then which content we've provided, and what is optional and what is included, and how it should be used at each of those steps. And so you can refer to this if you want to as a guide as you're working through the method. So we'll see further down here we've got a scope section which starts to be involved during sponsorship, and some of the things are included, some of the basic things, if you like, benefit profiles and product specifications, and there's some optional things like you might consider using a blueprint or a vision statement, for example, in more complex environments. So we can take that information on board, and as we progress further through the process we might choose to use some of those materials. So in fact you'll see as you work your way through these process steps here and come on to definition, we now see we've got some extra documentation. For example, our mandate isn't shown to us anymore because it's not relevant at this point in the process. What we do have instead is a brief, and of course we see the brief that we've already been working on. It's always showing us the latest available content in each situation. And we can see more things now that we need to. And we haven't had to go back to refer to loads of guidance and read up about it all. It's laying out for us what we need to do. We mentioned earlier about the scope, and we said that it's included a few of the simpler sort of documentation types as standard because it's a simpler life cycle. But if you wanted to add some extra things, you could. Now earlier you saw me adding files by dragging them onto the add file area. But actually, if I click add file, you'll see I have other types I can add. I can add shortcuts and links to other things, but also we have a template library. And the template library again is part of the overall framework. It includes things that you often add many times, so we might add 20 different benefit profiles perhaps to a project, or 10 or 15 product specifications. But also included in here are the sort of extended set of documentation that are not included for standard in the simple life cycle. So I can come down here and say, oh, actually a blueprint, well I am going to use a blueprint in this project because I know that there's some complexity around that area and I want to make sure I capture it. So it's about contextualizing the project for you. Okay, it's a simple model, but not all projects are the same, are they? That's a classic thing, and we're not wanting to get too constrained into just doing the absolute mapped thing. We want to think a bit wider than that and understand what the next steps we might do are that we might do to address the particular issues of this project. So now we've got a blueprint in here and we could work on that in the same way we did with the other content. So this is pretty straightforward. It lays it all out for you, and as you work through the model here, you'll get the materials that you need. Of course, as we said, we can link back and go and see the guidance if we want to. We can have a number of these projects running in parallel. Of course, because Project in a Box supports a number of different methods, you could have some Praxis projects running, you could have some Prince2 projects running, you could have some Agile projects running, all in the same tool. And that reflects the way that most people's real world is. They have a whole load of different projects doing different sorts of things, using different types of methods or different scales and complexities of method to match the different types of projects that are happening. So that's within Community Edition. I wanted to just pick out a couple of other areas. So I mentioned Community Edition comes with it a partner product, which is Planner, which is a free tool for plans, risk issue management, cost management, change management as well, and those are what we call SPN type of files. So some of the templates in here are SPN files, and when you open those, it will open in Planner. So you don't have to have a Microsoft project to deliver your projects using this tool. If I click on the project schedule, SPN file, you see it opens in Planner, which is installed when you install Community Edition for you. And Planner, like I say, is a planning tool. It's, if you like, a simplified version of Microsoft Project. We put into Planner the things we see in 80% of Microsoft Project files. Not 80% of what Microsoft Project does, but the things that you see very commonly used in Microsoft Project. That means it's simple to pick up and use, it's not cluttered, and it's free, which is obviously a major benefit. So we can see our tasks, we can double click to enter and work on them, as I'm doing here. So here's my task, and you see I can change the percentage complete and write some information about it, allocate some resources to it, do all the normal sorts of things. Planner also supports calendar and milestone, timeline modes. Planner can also support risk and issue management as well. Here we've got separate registers for those. You can combine them all into one file if you want to. So there's a whole environment here for delivering your project, and you can deliver Praxis Framework projects through it. Nice and easy. We're going to go away from that now and have a little look at the multi-user platform for Project in a Box as well, just to look at the extended things you get with Praxis here. So for bigger corporate environments, you're going to want to not just do the basic document management, but do the more extended things as well. So here we can see a Praxis project sat within a portfolio or a program of other activities some are being delivered using other different methods. And we can see immediately some data for it because we're building a data model here into this multi-user platform. We can see when the project is due to start and finish, how complete it is, what its benefits and financial levels and all the rest of that sort of information are. And obviously I double click to open it, and just like we saw in Community Edition, you get to navigate through that same model. It's exactly the same approach, so if you've used it in the free one, you'll be able to use it here. Exactly the same content and that same idea about document management. Of course, it takes the document management a bit further because we've got permissions models and different users, different permissions here. We've got integration with Outlook, so we can send and receive things here as well. Notifications running against these things, collaboration environments, all that sort of extended set of capabilities. One of the particular things I wanted to show you was here when you check out your file to work on it, it actually injects content into the file for you. So we hold a standard set of what we call properties for each project in the multi-user platform. These can be things like who the project manager is, who the sponsor is, which department the project is for, all that sort of data. And they are automatically updated into your files whenever you check them out. And that enables you to get nicely standardized, up-to-date content built in. So we can see that here it's put in the project name, project codes, who the people are, etc., all into that standard template. These are the same templates actually that are used in the Community Edition free one, but Community Edition doesn't inject properties for you. And obviously when we check that back in, that'll be bedded into that version. The other thing I want to talk about is reporting, because that's often the key driver from an organizational perspective for adopting tools. So you need to know you can report against things. Project in a Box has a pretty straightforward approach also to templating and standardizing reporting. We have a nice engine for developing project or portfolio or program type reports. They can be pre-templated and saved into a library, so you can run consistent reporting. So if I come and pick a project poster to print, for example, one of the standard type of reports, it's going to load up all the various bits that it wants into here, what type of plans, risk, issue, resourcing information it wants, properties, etc. And when I run that, it goes and grabs all that data from the project content and drops it into the report for me. So I'm going to get a standardized look and feel of report, but with the content in for this project. And here it comes. Always takes slightly longer when it's producing them directly to Word, but directly to Word is really popular because it's great for printing them. So it's put in some properties information here, some finances. We don't have benefits collection on this particular project, but it would put benefits in there if we had it. We can see plan information, some images perhaps associated with the project, risk and issue profiles, lessons coming from the Praxis Framework lessons library, other such things that we might choose to collect and drop into our report. So quite a simple sort of report, that one, but I say a whole range of different types of reports available for you to use. So you can get started straight away on the simple Community Edition, managing your project, following the Praxis Framework. You can use it on multi-user platforms with hundreds of users and hundreds of projects as well, of course, and you can roll those through programs and portfolios and do all the reporting and data management, permissions management, etc. around that. So that's my quick introduction to the Praxis Framework. I hope you've found all that helpful. Feel free to contact us if you've got any further questions, or if you'd like to have a one-to-one run through via web meeting to talk around that and how you can implement Praxis Framework, or in fact any of our other methods. And a final point actually, of course, you can personalize these content within Project in a Box. So yes, we have all these standard methods off the shelf, and many people do use them off the shelf, but you can also put in your own personalized methods. Those can be derivative versions of our standards, and they can also be your own completely bespoke methods as well. So if you want to deliver methodologies consistently across your PPM portfolios, we can help you do that. Thank you very much.